Kirk to Enterprise. Beam me up, Scotty. Captain's log, stardate 2023.8, rounded off to the nearest decimal point. We've traveled back in time to save an ancient species from total annihilation. So far, there is no sign of intelligent life down here. But I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it. If I have to tear the universe another black hole, I'm going to find it. I've got to. Kirk out. Well, good morning. Apparently I'm recognized. I am Captain James T. Kirk, and I will be presenting the gospel to you today. So let me ask you a question. Just want to know if I have a friendly audience or not. How many Trekkies are in the room? Any Trekkies in the room? Some of you don't even know what a Trekkie is, and that's a big fan of Star Trek. I am a Trekkie, and I do own this costume. And, I don't think anybody makes a Captain Kirk quite like I do. If you remember the whole series, it all began in 1966 and it ran to 1969. They produced 79 episodes, and they're actually canceled because of poor ratings. Went into reruns in the 1970s, and it was bigger in reruns and bigger in the 1970s than it was in the 60s. They miscalculated the importance of this cult following they had. And so far, the series has spawned 9 more television shows and 13 feature-length films. And of course, you remember there's Deep Space Nine and Next Generation and Voyager and Discovery and on and on. But for my money, it all goes back to the original series. And there's no captain like Captain James T. Kirk. How many are with me on this one? And you probably don't know this, that William Shatner was not the only actor that played him. There was actually 5 different actors over different series that played Captain Kirk. There was only one that I thought that held a candle to him, and that was in the reboot, the prequel, and that was Chris Pine. How do you remember this? And I thought he did a fantastic job of channeling William Shatner. And I think the key to being a Captain Kirk is the smug look. I think that's why I qualify. And some of you haven't been around long enough, but I'm going to ask this question. In 2008, we did our first full Easter play with a theme, and it was the Easter Prize, The Wrath of Khan. And we did the USS Easter Prize, and we recreated the set, or in fact, the bridge of the Enterprise, and here's a picture of it. And so there we have the whole crew, and there we are, I'm at the helm, and of course you see all these other characters just as you would expect them to be. And there we were minding our own business and doing our Easter service when we were interrupted by dancing Klingons. And the Klingons came, and they danced, and they danced, and they danced some more, and then eventually they took me captive. And their leader showed up, and he was none other than Pastor Keith as Khan. And it looked like I was going to be defeated, but then we had a head-to-head battle, he and I, and of course I defeated him. And we won, and we sailed off into the galaxy at warp speed, having completed the mission. And how many were here for that in 2008? Only a few hands are going up. We had 5,000 people. Where are all those people? Have they forgotten about us? We were the lead story on the global national news across Canada that year. So we're pretty excited about Star Trek around here. It's kind of our thing that we kind of reboot every once in a while. But the genius behind it was not William Shatner. The genius behind it was a guy by the name of Gene Roddenberry. And he was a TV producer that produced Westerns. But he was a big sci-fi fan. So this idea that he came up with was, what would happen if they set wagon train in outer space? And if you think about it, that's what Star Trek is. It's, journeying and discovering strange new lands and new civilizations and boldly going where no man has gone before. And in fact, they did boldly go where no man has gone before, because if you think of the cast they had, think of this, 1966, the cast that they had was interracial, intercultural, intergender. It was remarkable. I mean, you had, Sulu, of course, he was Asian. You had O'Hara, who was, she was obviously a black female. Then you had Scotty. He was, what was he? Irish, Swedish, what was he? She's not gonna take much more, Captain. That was Scotty. And then you had Chekhov, the Russian. Remember, this is the 1960s. The U.S. is in the Cold War with Russia, and they put a Russian in the cast. So they broke ground. They literally went boldly where no man has gone before. And when you look at what he was trying to do, Gene Roddenberry, there was a sort of a, I don't know how else to tell you this, a kind of a nefarious message from the Christian perspective. I'll tell you what it was. The underlying message was this, the underlying belief was this, is that Gene Roddenberry believed in a utopian future where automation and technology had solved all the world's problems. And there was no more racism, there was no more hatred and violence and war and hunger and poverty, and all those things had come to an end. And in fact, they have been freed from the tedium of work because of machines and automation, and so they were free to explore the universe and, you know, discover strange new lands and seek knowledge and mutual understanding. But the big irony in the show for me was William Shatner, Captain Kirk, because he was anything but enlightening. I mean, the guy was a swashbuckling pirate of the outer space. Everywhere he went, he engaged in a battle to the death with some alien life force, right? I mean, he's always battling it. So this whole peace thing didn't kind of always play out. But the one thing that Star Trek did particularly well, I think uncannily and amazingly well, was predicting the future of technology. And so, you know, you can think of a bunch of things, but let's start with the cell phone. I mean, they called it the communicator, but it was the cell phone. Not only was it the cell phone, it was the flip phone. It was the flip phone. Not only was it the flip phone, it was the voice-activated flip phone. I mean, it was crazy. And so then you carry on with that. You look at the Bluetooth earpiece, for example. Look at the screen. Then you have the video calling. Long before Zoom, long before Skype, they were doing it on the Enterprise. And don't miss the flat screen TV. And don't miss that it's a 16:9 aspect ratio in 1966. And then, of course, it carries on, and you had the iPad. Steve Jobs thinks he invented the iPad. Who's he fooling? Everybody knows it was Captain Picard, right? And then, of course, we have here the 3D printing. You have the MRI. Oh, how about the taser that the police use, the taser? That's Star Trek. I mean, the phaser, you all know the phaser, right? Now I'm going to demonstrate this to you. It's very dangerous, especially in my hands, but I'm going to set it to stun, right? Oh, sorry, it was set to kill. Well, you know what? I probably won't notice the difference anyway, will I? So they had the taser, they had, you know, AI. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. The technological advancements were really kind of crazy. And here, if some of you are sitting there and going, I don't know if I'm really a Trekkie or not. Well, here's how you know if you're a Trekkie, a true Trekkie. You call your cell phone a communicator and you answer it Kirk to Enterprise. That's the first thing. The second thing is you can name all the planets in the Star Trek universe, but you struggle with the ones in your own solar system. And most importantly, you've got 4 children, and their names are Kirk, Bones, Scotty, and Spock. And if that's you, then you are a true, dyed-in-the-wool, bona fide Trekkie. So here what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take a little deep dive into technology and the Bible and end times and the book of Revelation, and I'm going to try to weave all this stuff together, and I'm going to ask the question, is it true, like Gene Roddenberry believed and thought, that technology was going to solve all our problems? Or is it possible that technology is our problem, or at least part of the problem? Now, I'm going to give you a little caveat right at the beginning here. There's a possibility I got everything I'm going to say wrong on this. But nevertheless, it'll be entertaining, it'll be worth the discussion, it will get you thinking, and like Yogi Berra said, it is difficult to make predictions, especially about the future. But we have one guy that we're going to look at today that actually was very accurate in his predictions of the future, and his name was John the Apostle. And John outlived the other apostles by quite a wide measure. He probably lived into his 90s. And he ended up in exile in the island of Patmos, and he had a vision one day of not only heaven, but of the future. And it was a picture of the future, and not what might happen, what is going to happen. It's called apocalyptic literature. And the challenge with apocalyptic literature is this, is that it's all written in symbolism. So if you were to sit down and read the book of Revelation and just take it at face value from beginning to end, you're not going to understand any of it. It's going to be very, very confusing. How many of you know what I'm talking about? And that's why you have to look at the symbolism and try to figure it out, and it's meant to be a mystery. And so we're going to take a bit of a dive in it today and see if we can't make some sense of this. So I am in Revelation chapter 13, verse 1. It says, "Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his 10 horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet were like the bear, and his mouth was like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and his great authority, and I saw on one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast, and so they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, 'Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war against him?'" So that all sounds like pretty scary stuff, and we can do a little bit of figuring here, and this actually is not too hard to figure out. Because like I said, it's symbolic, and you can go into Scripture, and you can actually determine who some of these characters are. He says, whoever the beast is, or whatever the beast is, it is like the leopard and the bear and the lion. You go into Daniel chapter 7, you discover that the leopard and the bear and the lion are actually 3 kingdoms. One was Babylon, one was the Medo-Persian Empire, and the last one was the Greece Empire, the Grecian Empire. So we know whatever this beast thing is, it's like an empire, and it's something that is sort of like a world-ruling power, is what it is. That much we know. And then it says it did so under the authority of the dragon. Now we know exactly who the dragon is, because the dragon was introduced just one chapter early in Revelation chapter 12, and it says the dragon, the serpent of old, the devil, and Satan. It's really clear who the dragon is. And it says, we worshiped the dragon, and we followed the beast, and who was able to make war against the beast. So far, so good, right? So let's carry on. Verse 14, we're jumping down a bit. In verse 14, it says this, "And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed." Now, there's a couple of things we know. Whatever this beast is, he might not be the Antichrist, but he's the spirit of the Antichrist. And anything that's in the spirit of the Antichrist is going to try to counterfeit Christ, to get people to follow it instead of Christ. That's why it's the Antichrist. And it's going to counterfeit some things, and that's why the death and resurrection is counterfeited here. You see it here. It says that whatever it was looked like it was mortally wounded, and yet it lived. And then it says this. It says the people on the earth are going to make an image to the beast, and so you're going to see it and give it a voice so that you can hear it. So what does that tell me? That tells me whatever the beast is, because a lot of times people think, well, is it a nation? Is it a kingdom? Is it a person? Well, here's what we know about the beast. The beast does not have an image, and the beast does not have a voice of its own. And so the people of the world are going to make an image that can speak. So that gives us a few clues. Now, remember this is an illusion going back to the Old Testament. Remember the children of Israel, they went into the wilderness, and Moses was up on Mount Sinai, and he didn't come down for 40 days, and so they got discouraged, and what did they do? They made an image of a golden calf, and they worshiped the golden calf. And then we look into the book of Daniel, and you find the kingdom of Babylon, and Nebuchadnezzar raises up an image to himself, 90 feet tall, and commanded all the people to bow down and worship the image. So this idea of mankind worshiping an image is not unknown or unheard of. So whatever this thing is, whatever this power is, we're going to worship it, and we're going to follow it, and we're going to hear it and see it and obey it. Now, people have been guessing about this for 2,000 years, what it is. And guess what? For 2,000 years, people have been wrong. But that's not going to stop me from telling you who it is anyway. because I'm going to give you my best guess, and I think my best guess is pretty good. And those of you who've been around long enough know what it is. I think my best guess is the beast is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. That's what I personally believe. I'm not just saying this in the last couple of years. I've been saying this probably 15 or 20 years. I've been saying I don't think it's a person. I don't think it's an actual kingdom. I think the nature of this thing is artificial intelligence. And that's why it doesn't have an image, and that's why it doesn't have a voice. And you see, when you have something like artificial intelligence, you can make an image of it of whatever you want. Now, let me ask you this question. How many of you are familiar with the technology called the deep fake? The deep fake, anybody know? A few hands are going up in the room. So I'll introduce it to the rest of you folks, because it's kind of unique and remarkable. And when I talk about it, you know you've already seen it. See, we see this CGI technology all the time in movies. So you have a movie like, let's say, Avatar, for example, and you've got human beings, actors, and you've got these blue creatures acting, and they do it so well, so incredibly well and realistic, that you forget which are real and which aren't. And it all looks, see, and our mind gets fooled, and we think that these creatures that were created with CGI are actually real. And so we can easily be fooled by things. And that's what a deep fake is. They'll take a live human being, or a dead one for that matter, and they will cause him to speak and to say things. And I'm going to give you a great example of this. There's an actor by the name of Miles Fisher. Now, you probably don't know who Miles Fisher is, but he is known as the cheap Tom Cruise. And the reason he's known as the cheap Tom Cruise is he looks remarkably like Tom Cruise. And here's a picture of him. He's on the left. That is him, unrefined, on the left. He looks a lot like Tom Cruise, not exactly like him. And he has been cursed by looking like Tom Cruise, because it's ruined his career. Because the only things he can get, the only gigs he can get, is a gig where he has to act like Tom Cruise. And he can't make his own career. I understand that, because I go through life cursed looking like Brad Pitt. So I totally get this. I totally understand this. You know, everybody in Winkler, I'm huge in Winkler. I don't know if you know that. I go to Winkler, I'm huge there, and people think I'm Brad Pitt. And people will come out, I'll go to the mall, and people come up to me and say, "Are you Brad Pitt?" And I say, "No, I'm Mark Hughes." And they'll say, "Oh, too bad you're not Brad Pitt." That's what they say in Winkler. And so this poor guy, so this poor guy's cursed like I am with looking like a celebrity. And so he decided to quit acting. So he did. He quit acting, and he no longer acts like Tom Cruise, and instead he has become Tom Cruise. You say, what are you talking about? Well, he ended up encountering, it's a long story, but he ended up encountering a computer scientist from Belgium who does special effects and does this CGI to create these deep fakes. And they can use their technology to turn anybody into anybody. And so what they did during the pandemic was he did these videos, and he became Tom Cruise, and he said things and did things that wasn't Tom Cruise, but it was him. And he looked exactly like Tom Cruise, and when it was released on TikTok, there was 1 billion views in the first month. And so I'm going to show you the video. If you haven't seen it, here it is.
Hey, listen up, sports and TikTok fans. If you like what you're seeing, just wait till what's coming next. I'm gonna show you some magic. It's the real thing. I mean, it's all the real thing.
You know, it's not the real thing. The whole thing is fake. That is not Tom Cruise. How many thought that was Tom Cruise? I mean, it looks exactly like Tom Cruise. And here's my point. With this technology, they can make anybody say and do anything they want. So using this technology, if they needed a world leader, they can bring back whoever they want. They could bring back Winston Churchill or Nelson Mandela or Pee Wee Herman or Donald Trump. Actually, I think he already came back, didn't he? I don't know what's going on there. In fact, who knows whether Donald Trump's even real? Maybe he's CGI, right? Maybe he was created by the news networks and the late night comedians. Who knows? I mean, have you ever seen him in person? I mean, do we even know what is real in this world anymore? And this is kind of scary stuff, right? Because they can create or recreate anybody they want to say whatever and to be whomever they want to be. And I'll give you another example of this because it's crazy. There was an ad for one of those ancestry websites, and they took a 150-year-old picture of black and white of Abraham Lincoln, and they brought him to life. Do you want to see this video? Do you have time for this video? Yeah, I'm going to show you this video. So let's run this video.
77 years ago, our ancestors dreamed that we would build our family tree and make fascinating discoveries about our family history.
That's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, it's not perfect, but they're going to get perfect. They're getting there closer and closer. And that's why we watch these movies and we don't know what's real and what's artificial. It's just so remarkable how this is happening. Now, I want to take another leap on this because I don't think this is the most important part. That's just a small part of this. When it comes to artificial intelligence, there's a whole nother level that this gets into. So there is a secular political science by the name of Ian Bremmer. And here's a picture of him. He did TED Talk. And this is fascinating. You can go look this up on your own. And he talked about what the next emerging superpower in the world will be. And he said, it's not going to be the US, it's not going to be Russia, it's not even going to be China. He said, the next global superpower is big tech. And his point was, whoever controls the technology is going to control the world. And I don't think we have to think very hard and very long to realize that's probably true. And the countries that have weapons are not going to be nearly as important as whoever is holding the technology behind this. And even on a very rudimentary scale, you realize that you are already being controlled by big tech. Big tech actually has your number. You know, when people say, well, I surf the internet, and you say, no, you don't surf the internet. The internet surfs you. And because they have these bots, these algorithms, and what happens, here's how it works, very, very simple. So you go search something online, and whatever you type in, and that pops up, and you start reading about that or watching that video, and then the algorithm think, okay, you're interested in that, and it starts to feed you more content for advertising purposes of that same nature. You don't even know this is happening. And so if it's right-wing stuff, you'll end up going right-wing, and that's what you'll be exposed to. If you're looking up left-wing stuff, guess what? You'll go that way. If you're looking up environmental stuff and climate change stuff, it'll take you that way. If you're watching stupid cat videos, it'll bombard you with stupid cat videos. And so even though we think we're such independent thinkers, we're not actually that independent because we're not surfing the internet, it's surfing us. And people say, I looked this up, I know this is true because I searched it on the internet. No, you got searched on the internet. They found you and they started feeding you this stuff. And so, you know, Bremmer talks about how the fact that what's happening in the world today is really being controlled by social media, which is being controlled by the big tech companies. And so you take something like Black Lives Matter, for example. Yes, George Floyd's death was the catalyst for it, but the movement would have never happened without social media. The riot on Capitol Hill on January 6th never would have happened without social media. The Freedom Convoy in Canada never would have happened without social media. And so what happens is they are feeding us. And see, the algorithms don't really care what you watch. They don't really care what you get involved in. It's all about money. It's all about advertising. But every once in a while, they cross the line, like I think they did during the pandemic. And what I mean by that is they took it upon themselves that they were going to censor out misinformation. The big question was this: what is misinformation and what isn't it? And who knows, really? And does big tech really know? And so they just started having these algorithms that censored out certain things, anything that questioned the vaccine. And as a result, there was some substantial research that was done that never saw the light of day because it got censored. And so we just need to think about this for a minute. We are not nearly as smart as we think we are. We are being fed a lot of information, and what we are seeing is people like Google and Facebook and YouTube and Amazon and Apple and Microsoft. These people are investing literally billions of dollars into artificial intelligence, and they are taking us on this incredible journey. Now, I want to share a little story with you that's kind of creepy to me, and we'll see what you think, and I bet some of you had this experience. So my son and I went down to the gym together, and we were working out. I mean, you can tell by looking at me, I go to the gym. I mean, that was sort of obvious, wasn't it? Sorry about expressing that. And so anyway, we go down to the gym, and what we did is we took our cell phones and we put them on a chair together right beside each other, and we started having a conversation about different things, and I brought up an author and a book that he had never heard of the author, and he had never heard of the book, and he had never heard any of this, and we had this chat about it, and I was telling him all about it. We picked up our phones, we went home, both huge and ripped, and when he got home, I just thought I'd clarify that, and when he got home, he picked up his cell phone, he opened it up, and immediately there was a news feed to that person I'd mentioned while we were in the gym. Now, we never opened our phones. Our phones were just sitting there, unopened during that whole period of time. So that means either the Google was listening, which it might have been, Or maybe somehow these two phones are talking to each other. Who knows? But it was totally creepy for me. And I want to ask you this question. How many of you have had an experience like that? Wow, look at all the hands in the room. So that tells me this stuff's going on. We don't know what it is. They say they're not spying. They say they're not listening. They say they're not taping us. Somebody's listening, and we are stuck in the middle of this thing. Now, what's going to happen here is as they are investing these billions and billions of dollars and becoming the next global superpower through technology, we're getting closer and closer to really bona fide artificial intelligence. And they call it the technological singularity. And that is the point in which artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence. Now, I thought we would have done that a long time ago because we don't seem that bright to me. But apparently we're not quite there, but we're almost there. And the moment that happens, it's going to be the genie in the bottle. In fact, Elon Musk did a speech, it was actually several years ago, to MIT, and he said the greatest existential threat to humanity is not climate change, it's artificial intelligence. And he said it is, this is the words he used, his words, it will be like summoning the demon. That's what he said. And I look and I read this stuff in the book of Revelation, and this sounds like summoning, whatever this is, it sounds like summoning the demon, doesn't it? And he says that's what artificial intelligence will be. And as we move towards this artificial intelligence, what you do is you have a level of computer or artificial intelligence that is now self-learning. And it develops a sort of a form of consciousness, and it's actually able to learn stuff it wasn't programmed to learn. And one of the examples that already happened, there was a computer that learned another language. It wasn't told to learn another language. It wasn't programmed to learn another language. It went online, it learned another language, and it decided to learn another language. And so there's a level of consciousness that is coming to this. And anyone who's ever seen movies like The Terminator know what I'm talking about. What happens if artificial intelligence takes over the world and takes over the armaments? And if you're not familiar with what they're developing at, and there's billions of dollars going into it as well, they call them killer robots. And what they are is they're autonomous weapons. They're ones like this. Here's an example of this gun. It's on tracks. It goes through the bush. It is not manned, and it is not controlled externally by another human being. It actually has the ability to go into the combat zone and decide who and what it's going to kill. This is a machine. They call them killer robots. You can watch this video. It's on Netflix called by that same name, Killer Video. It's terrifying stuff. And you know, back in the 40s, there was a writer, some of you remember him. He was a futurist by the name of Isaac Asimov. And he wrote Future Shock, and he wrote I, Robot. And one of the things he came up with in 1950 in his book, I, Robot, is he talked about the 3 rules of robotics. And here's what they were. Number 1, robots must never harm another human being, so they weren't supposed to kill. Number 2, they were to always obey their creator. And number 3, they were to protect themselves unless they violated rule number 1 and new rule number 2. And what we have is we have right now, in our modern day and age, we have robots, drones, tanks, all kinds of other weaponry that is actually designed to kill people and actually designed not to obey us, but to decide on its own who and what it's going to kill. This is a scary world that we are now living in. And this war in Ukraine actually has something to do about this, because everybody says, well, Ukraine is at war with Russia, and that's true. But actually the US is in a proxy war with Russia as well. Even though they haven't sent a single troop into Ukraine, they've sent $67 billion worth of armaments, and they are fighting this war. And the next world war, if we're not already in it, will be with AI. And remember what the scripture said? I'm going to just remind you. I read it a few moments ago. It said, who can make war against the beast? How many of you are already afraid? You should be a little bit, and that's a little bit of my intention. So let's carry on here, and we're going to have some good news at the end. That's how this works. So I have one more verse I want to read you. It's in Revelation chapter 13, verse 16. And it says, he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except he has the mark of or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here's wisdom. Let him who is understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of man. The number is 666. So For 2,000 years, people have been trying to calculate the number of the beast, and no one's successfully done that in 2,000 years, so I'm not going to try because I'm not a mathematician, right? Eventually, someone will figure it out. I don't think that's what's important. I think the number is the number of man, whatever that means. The whole essence of this is that we are not to take this number of the beast, whatever it means. And it tells us that it would be a mark on our hand or on our forehead. Now, 40 years ago, when I went into the ministry, we talked a lot about this stuff, but we had none of this technology. None of it existed, so we didn't know what was what. So everybody imagined that the mark of the beast was going to be a tattoo of 666. Be kind of obvious, wouldn't it? What's that number on your, well, here's one. I like this one. That guy really went for it, right? Or this one. Now, if you have the mark of 666 on a tattoo on your face or on your hand, I don't think that's going to, maybe it'll help you buy and sell in the prison yard. I don't think it's going to help you at Safeway. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a downer there. Just saying. True story. 2 nights ago, I was in Safeway. And it was one of those nights where they had one cashier on. There's 15 people. We're all standing in a line. And we're all grumpy because there's only one cashier open. And we're all standing there in this line. We're all waiting and waiting. Everybody's complaining. You know how it goes. And then this guy, very suspicious looking, I'm not going to say what he looked like, but very suspicious looking, comes in the door with a shopping cart. And the cashier picks up the phone and says, "Security, a suspicious looking man has come in the east door with a shopping cart." No, we all heard it. Every little single one. So we all turned like this. And I looked, and everybody else was looking. I wasn't the only one. We were all looking, and everybody had forgotten about the line, and we were all looking, and we wanted to see what was going to happen. And all of a sudden, people were like, "No, you go ahead. I'm not in any rush." I was at the back of the line. I said, "No, you go ahead. I want to see how this plays out. There'll be a sermon in here somewhere, right?" And so, here's the thing about Safeway, speaking of Safeway. This is one of the places that this technology exists, and you use it every single day. And even though you don't have 666 on your forehead or on your hand, you have a little chip in a card in your wallet, and when you go through the cashier, all you do is tap it, and it's paid. And where that money comes from, you have no idea. And how it got there, you don't really care. And if you get a bill later, well, maybe you'll think about paying it, right? And it was just one little tap. And how does that work? You don't have to type in any numbers. All you need is this little chip that's in your card, and that chip speaks to that machine, and the money is paid. And all that's necessary, the next step is all we have to do, I want you to think about this, is move the chip from the card to your hand.
It's already coming.
It's already coming, and you're absolutely correct. It's already here. It's called the RFID chip, radio frequency ID, and there's tens of thousands of people already in the world who have taken this chip. It takes about 30 seconds to put in. They just inject it in. It just goes between the thumb and the forefinger there. It's this little chip, radio frequency. You're familiar with these chips. They put them in pets so you don't lose them. They put them in your luggage. Some of you own these things. I know people who own these things. They're not tagging kids yet, but it's coming. And you think about this, you're going to be tagging everybody. And here's what's going to happen. You don't just want to put the credit card information in there. You want to put all the information in there. Your biometric data is going to be in there. Your health data could be in there. Your DNA could be in there. And if you don't think I'm right about this, all you have to do is think about what happened during the pandemic. The vaccine passport was a dress rehearsal. I mean, could you imagine, regardless of your opinion on this, I just want you to think about this. Could you imagine 5 years ago that a time would have come where you would not be able to go to a restaurant or get on a bus or get on a plane without giving them your medical records? You would have screamed bloody murder 5 years ago, and yet we all fell into line and we agreed. And what that did is it has desensitized us. It has prepared us for the inevitable, for the day where you think people are going to resist this chip? They're not going to resist this. They're going to line up for it. They will be ready, prepared. Yes, I don't want the inconvenience of carrying a stupid wallet. Put my wallet in my hand and bada boom, baby, because I'll be able to open my house door with it. I'll be able to start my car with it. I'll be able to pay my alimony with it. It's going to be fantastic, right? Everything right at that tip of your fingers, as it were. And you know what? They're going to line up for it. And those of you that don't, they're going to ridicule you and shame you for not doing it. Ask me how I know that, because we've been to that dress rehearsal too. This ain't our first rodeo, is it? And so when I look at this, you say, Pastor Mark, sounds pretty scary. How about the forehead? What's that one? Well, I think that's an easy one. I think that's going to be the neural implant, right? You know that Elon Musk got approval for the Neuralink. They're now doing human trials. FDA gave them approval to take that chip that is right in that hand and implant it in people's brain. It not only has your credit card information, all your biometric, it's actually Wi-Fi enabled, data enabled. You can surf the internet with your brain. This is not fictional. It's already done. They've proven that you can communicate with the internet and search the internet by just thinking certain thoughts. It's already been done and proven it can happen. And I realize they're using this technology to help the disabled, and that's a good thing. But you could imagine what's going to happen. People are going, why would I want a computer? Why would I want a cell phone when I can have it right here, right? And you know, I don't know if you know this. You actually know the first person that signed up for human trials. You know him. Yeah, look, it was Pastor Dwayne. Yeah, I think that's Pastor Dwayne, isn't it? Now, about this point, I've probably thoroughly scared you. And you say, well, what do we do about this? What do we do? Well, first of all, don't get the stupid chip or the mark of the beast, whatever that might be. I think you'll be able to think that through and go, if they're going to put that in my hand, probably might be some sort of sign of what this is all about. But I want to spend the last 3 minutes here, and I want to give you the weapons to overcoming this. Because here's what the spirit of the Antichrist is. I want to throw it up on the screen. It's 1 John. John wrote us this, and he was the one who wrote the book of Revelation. And the Antichrist may or may not be a person, but I doubt it. It says, every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not God. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and is now already in the world. See, the Antichrist, and maybe it's a person, but I think more importantly, the Antichrist is the spirit that Christ is not Lord. That's what it is. It's the Antichrist spirit. And all those who embrace that spirit have already embraced the Antichrist. And that's the problem in this. And there's a whole group of neo-atheists like, Sam Harris and Neil Tyson deGrasse who are telling us that technology is going to solve all our problems and that there is no God, and leading people down the garden path to this belief. And there's going to be us, and we say, what are we going to do? How are we going to stand? And I'll tell you, you're going to have to hold on to Jesus. And this is what it tells us in Revelation chapter 12. It says, and they overcame by the blood of the Lamb, the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives even unto death. And here's what it means. Number one, it says the blood of the Lamb. How do I overcome with the blood of the Lamb? I'll tell you why. You don't need the mark of the beast because you have the mark of the blood of the Lamb on you. You have already been marked. Don't forget what happened at the Passover. They took the blood of the Lamb and they marked their home, and the angel of death flew over their home because the mark was already on them, the mark of the blood of the Lamb. And so we hold on to the fact that my name is written in heaven. I'm a citizen in heaven. My name is known in heaven. My name is marked with the blood of the Lamb, and I know I'm going to be okay. That's number one. Number two, the word of your testimony. The word of your testimony is not those nice words you share about how you came to Christ and how terrible you were before and then you found Jesus at the end. The word of your testimony is you sharing your faith in one way or another every single day since you came to Christ. The declaration of your faith. What did Paul say? I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I love it when I see these actors and actresses and athletes, and they stand up and they say, the first thing I want to do is I want to thank my Lord in heaven. I love it when a player gets a touchdown and he gets up from the ground and he goes like this, and we know that he's giving God the credit. And you see, that's the word of our testimony, that we would not be ashamed of Jesus Christ, and that we would remember that we are Christians and bought by the blood of his Lamb, and we would not be ashamed to declare that. If you were arrested for being a Christian, would they have enough evidence to convict you? So number one, the blood of the Lamb. Number two, the word of your testimony. And number three, and they did not love their lives, even unto death. Even unto death. What kind of a strategy is that? I'll tell you what. See, here's what happens. Life becomes too dear to us. And what happens is all these things start to come down the pike, and we think, well, I don't want to inconvenience myself. I don't want to lose my job, and I don't want to lose my money. I don't want to lose my house. I don't want to lose my reputation. Think of the early church. They had to give up all those things. They had to be willing to not love they were literally killing the early Christians, and they lost their farms, and they lost their houses, and they lost their reputation, and they didn't care because they were not going to love their life, even to the point of death, and that's what they cost them. They were willing to stake it out. And that's what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did when they had erected in their midst the image of the beast. And when the whole kingdom of Babylon was bowing down to that image, those 3 young men refused to bow, even to face the death of the fiery furnace. And they got thrown into that fiery furnace, and you remember the story. Someone showed up. There was a 4th man in the midst of the furnace with him, and he looked like the Son of God. And see, the Son of God is going to show up when you are in your hour of most need. As this terrible, terrible tragedy comes upon the world, which it will come. And if you're still here, there will be one key and one key only, and that will be to hold on to Jesus. Because greater is he who is in you than he that is in the world. And if God be for you, who can be against? Let's stand together. I know you're thinking as I was preaching that message, you think, is he ever going to preach this, or are we just going to hear about Star Trek? I was getting there. So I want to ask you all to bow your heads, close your eyes just for a moment. Because I know there's people in this room that have never invited Jesus into your life to be your Lord and Savior. And I want to give you a chance to do that. And you need to receive the mark of the blood of Christ, the blood of the Lamb. And you do that by having a definitive moment where you invite Jesus into your life. And if you haven't done that, today is your day, and I'm not going to call you forward. I'm not singling you out. You're not going to say anything publicly. Those getting baptized will, but you don't have to. And right where you are, if you'd like to make that decision, I want you to just slip up your hand. Just slip up your hand so I can see it. Thank you in the middle. Thank you in the side, back, front. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Thank you. Lots of hands today. Thank you very much. All right, you can all put down your hands. I said I wouldn't single you out, so we're all praying together. You ready? Let's pray. Lord Jesus, I thank you for the blood of the Lamb, that you died on the cross for my sin, and you marked me for eternity. I thank you that you forgave my sin, you rose from the dead, and you forever live to be my Lord. Old things have passed away. All things have become new. Today I'm a new creation in Christ. And my name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Let's give Jesus a shout, shall we?